What's up, the internet? It's Kyle. This is Talking Shop with Kyle. I am joined by Eisner-nominated uh, artist and musical guy. And look, I know him from TikTok, so we're gonna get into that too. This is Dave Chisholm, whose book is at Z2 Comics, Chasing the Bird. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me your origin story.
Oh man. Well, in Fairbanks, Alaska in June of 1981, I was born and I just barely turned 40. So there you go. My origin story, the earliest music I remember hearing is like Miles Davis, Sketches of Spain, Charles Mingus, Let My Children Hear Music. And the earliest memories I have of reading are like comic books, just tons and tons of comics from my parents all the time, and all kinds of weirdo like 1980s black and white boom kind of comics and stuff like that. Like one year for the Tooth Fairy brought Yummy Fur, which is really bizarre, which is a really like bizarre indie comic, and so really that's the start of my life, just being a ping pong back and forth between various music versions of like musical expression and then making comics and eventually it led me to get my doctorate in music and then also make a bunch of graphic novels that most of which are music related. And my most recent work is a book called Chasing the Bird, and it's about infamous saxophonist Charlie Parker and a couple years that he spent in California. The book was commissioned by the Parker estate in celebration of his 100th birthday. He's not alive anymore. He died tragically young, but and so the book was commissioned in celebration of his centennial, and it came out in December of 2020. It was delayed a little bit because of like COVID, just like everything. And like you said, it was pretty thrilling to see that the book got an Eisner nomination for Best Publication Design, which is really cool. It's my first time venturing into that zone, so it's pretty thrilling.
So, like, I'm gonna try and rein the ADHD in here because I want to ask you about so many things because we have many shared interests. Before I was in comic books, I was in broadcasting, which was an offshoot of being a musician. I got into broadcasting because I couldn't be a musician anymore. So, it all like my musical career ended, let's put it that way. So I got into broadcasting and because I wanted to share music with people. So like, I want to ask you a lot of questions about both things, but let's talk about, let's talk about jazz.
Sure.
One of my earliest memories is hearing that the greatest jazz pianist ever was from Toledo, Ohio, and that was people calling it Art Tatum. That was people saying that about Art Tatum, and then I discovered Thelonious Monk, and was like unsure. So, what instrument do you play? What instruments do you play? What brought you, other than listening to jazz, to being a musician and being in music?
My main instrument is trumpet. And I also play a lot of guitar and play a lot of piano, and I'm like an okay drummer and I can play some electric bass too if I feel like it. But yeah, my main instrument, the instrument that I've studied the longest by far is trumpet. And yeah,
I always envied horn players because
the horn players envy everybody else because we can only play one damn note at a time. So,
well, I always envied horn players as they always had the melody, coming up in marching band and in all that kind of stuff. And then we get to jazz band, and it's like, hey, Kyle, go sit at the piano and you do this. And now all of a sudden I've got the lead, and I'm like, oh, now I can't screw up. When I was just a drummer, I could mess up.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, and it's a weird question, but if you had to pick a horn player
Mm.
to say this is the one that I can go back to, this is my safety blanket, this is my safety net. Is there one?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's kind of like the best desert island pick for like the music made by a horn player is Miles Davis, because Miles Davis from like the earliest time to his career all the way to the end was always changing in radical ways. So the music he made in 1959 is so totally different from the music he made in 1969. Like, it couldn't be more different. And then when you compare that to the music he made in like 1974, it's like a night and day again. And all of it is great. Well, most of it is pretty in a lot of ways a problematic kind of character in some ways in his personal life. His music is so near and dear to my heart. I particularly love the music he did with Gil Evans, the albums Miles Ahead, Porgy and Bess, and Sketches of Spain, as well as the album Quiet Nights. Those albums are probably like my favorite like string of albums like by any artist ever. If I was to desert island it, it would probably be those records. So yeah.
I gotta say, Kind of Blue is in regular recording for me, regular rotation for me.
Yeah.
I was blessed to have a great jazz club here in town, and I got introduced to a lot of maybe less known jazz greats, guys like Fathead Newman.
Yeah.
And some of those guys of that era, a little bit later, maybe a little bit less known than Miles or Bird or Dizzy or some of those guys. But Kind of Blue just hits you in a special way. So I completely understand that.
Yeah, you should definitely also check out Milestones, the album that same group, like pretty much the same group, it's just without Bill Evans, did, because that record rips too, man, but in a totally different way. It's probably like less of a vibe. Like Kind of Blue is such a vibe. And Milestones is a little bit more like that band flexing, it's really great. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look, it's Miles on trumpet, Cannonball Adderley on alto sax, John Coltrane on tenor saxophone. Right there, those are three Hall of Famers. Like, everybody on this record is a Hall of Famer, but those are guys that people know, like non-jazz people know.
Right. Yeah, man.
When I go out, when I still play shows, I do a Cannonball Adderley song called Sermonette. It's like one of my signature, tunes that we do. And every time, like, I'm not doing this justice. I'm not doing this justice. I'm not doing this justice. So I guess let me bring it back around to comic books again.
Yeah.
Jazz is a largely, for many people, an improvisational form of music. It's sure there's music theory and there's all this kind of stuff, but Miles, especially towards, later on in his career, was very improvisational. As an artist and a creator, are you able to use those same skills in terms of the music improvisation, the kind of the way your brain thinks about solving that problem to bring to the page?
Yeah, I'd say I think the answer to your question is like nested in the question, because you said solving the problem, and all this stuff is just problem solving. Whether you're on stage improvising over some difficult tune or an easy tune or any kind of whatever, or you're at home and you're trying to square the circle of a particular story beat, or if you're sitting at the drawing table and you've got to like figure out how to lay this page out, or how to ink a particular panel. It all is problem solving. And this is the beautiful thing about an education in music, is that it really kind of sharpens problem solving skills. I would say the part of making comics that most resembles improvising in this particular style of music is probably inking for me. My pencils tend to be fairly loose with a few exceptions, and then my inking tends to be a lot of improvisational kind of stuff, and sometimes for better, sometimes sometimes I end up having to do ink a page a couple different times, and that's okay too.
Right. It's you never cut the first take, right?
Well,
Unless sometimes you do, I suppose.
only has 1 second take on it, or one second take. So like that's a bunch of first takes. Miles Smiles is a bunch of first takes. So, I kind of think like there's something to be said for the courage of giving yourself that space to like totally screw up.
Yeah.
And I think like I work really fast when I make comics, and part of it is because I'm decisive, and I just like this is the direction it's going, and I don't really sit and deliberate for a long time. I just decide, and I go, and then I move on, and I go to the next page, and I go to the next page. And if I get to the end of a project and I look back on like a 150-page book, and I want to like change a face on page 15, then I can do that then. But like the real pitfall is getting stuck in like a revision cycle on one page over and over and over again, where you're just like, doing things that don't matter for the story, that aren't gonna really that will make the page like 0.005% better, and it's just not worth that time and trouble. So it's kind of like the thing about playing improvising in jazz music, or like some musicians call it like Black American music now. So like because the term jazz is kind of originated as a derogatory term. So when you're playing that music, you kind of learn that perfectionism is the enemy really early, and you kind of learn that like the goal isn't to. The way I tell my students is that on any day you could be from here to here with your improvising, right? And when we practice, we're not practicing to make this higher. We're practicing to make this higher, right? You want your worst day to be like good enough that you've fooled everybody into thinking you're having a good day. And then your best day will by just inevitably become better as a result of that kind of work. And I think with comics making, I kind of take the same philosophy that like, it's real process oriented. It's built around kind of like getting it within a span of like getting my work to be acceptably good enough. I'm not aiming for perfectionism. I'm aiming to tell a story. So, yeah.
I had a vocal coach once tell me, practice so much you can't mess it up. And then I met Dr. John, who said, practice so much you can do whatever you want, and no one will know when you've messed up.
That's it. Yeah, those are the two different mindsets. And I think the second mindset, the one by Dr. John, is the one that leads to having a bit more of a prolific output.
Yeah, he was one of those that I met him, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's that guy I saw on TV.
Right.
It's this legend.
Totally.
And I'm playing, in a little hole in the wall, and he's sitting there with his friends, and I played one of his tunes, and he comes up and goes, hey, you missed that note. And I'm like, yeah, I know I missed it. He goes, if you'd have hit this note after, I wouldn't have even been able to hear it. And it's like, he's like, I've practiced and messed that up so many times. I know how to solve anything.
Right.
And I like that idea that it's the same kind of concept with storytelling, is it's work on your story, tell your story, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to tell the story.
Right. Yeah. But then I look at artists who take a long time to do their work and end up with something that really is perfect or close to perfect. And I'm like, damn it, I wish I could be like that. But you know what? At this point, I would rather, at this point, I like the work I make. I like the art that I make. I like the stories that I tell, and I'm lucky to get to tell them. So I'm not complaining.
No. So you mentioned that you've done other music-based graphic novels.
Yeah.
So let's let people know what those are. Let's talk about those.
Well, my first published work is came out in 2017, and it's called Instrumental, and it's a 220 page graphic novel that has a soundtrack of music that goes with it. So each chapter gets a track of music, and it's all original music that I wrote and performed. And it's a killer book, man. It's also published by Z2, the same people who published Chasing the Bird. It is currently like on back order, like everywhere except for through Diamond. So I think if your comic shop orders it, they can get a copy from Diamond, but you can't get it on Amazon or anywhere else. There's a little bit of a distribution issue happening. It should be available everywhere still, and for like a year now, it's only been available through Diamond. So some sort of warehouse issue is going on with that one. Anyway, so that's my first one. My second book is called Canopus. That's not music related at all. Although when I was putting out when Scout Comics put that out, and when they were putting out the single issues, I asked all my musician friends if they would want to write music that is inspired by the comic book. And so I had maybe 10 or 12 musicians like contribute songs and soundtracks, and it was really cool. It was really, really, really cool. So yeah, that was really fun. And then Chasing the Bird, and then I have my next book is totally done. We're just in the process of doing the book design right now, getting all of the inside front cover, all the fun little like nooks and crannies in the book. But I can't talk about it because it hasn't been announced yet, and I did sign an NDA for it, so it's kind of off limits. But yeah, that one, I guess it's another music related book. I'm not breaking any rules by saying that, but that's all I can say. It's going to be amazing. I'm really excited about it. And then I also had I've done some stories for anthologies. So like Z2 did a Beethoven anthology that came out earlier this year, and I had a 8-page story that I wrote and drew and colored in that one that turned out really cool with Max Richter. It was like inspired by a story of Max Richter, the movie composer, about him taking composition lessons with a famous composer named Luciano Berio in Florence, Italy. He was taking lessons, and he showed up for his first lesson and had all this complicated music, and Berio just kind of looked at it and kind of laughed at him and said, what are you trying to say with this music? It's so complicated. And according to the story, Berio put on some Beethoven that was particularly simple, and said and it was sort of a breakthrough moment for Max Richter that led him to not that he just writes simple music, but his music really connects to the non-musician listener a lot more than a lot of modern day composers. And so yeah, I put that, I kind of connected the dots in that story, and then I've also done a couple of short comics for other anthologies that are music related, like that book Dream Another Dream, which was like a Little Nemo anthology that won an Eisner the year it came out. It's like an enormous book. It's like 3 feet tall, and I did one in there that's music related. But yeah, it's an obsession of mine. I'm probably not going to stop even if I want to, and I'm happy to take the work.
Well, and Z2 is a great partner in that. They do a lot of books that have musical influences or musical undertones or are straight up musical books.
Yeah, they've really pivoted to almost exclusively doing music related books. I think the only books that they've put out in the last year that weren't tied, licensed by some, music artists were the 2 books that Alex de Campi did. The Maddie book that she did with the guy that made Moon, Duncan Jones, is that his name?
Yeah, something like that.
And she did a anthology of war stories or stories by soldiers or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. So yeah, they're wheeling and dealing, man. They're making some amazing deals. They've got some really killer projects coming up.
I remember the first book Z2 ever came onto my radar with was a book about, I don't even remember, it was called Murder Ballads. I remember it now, and it was Robert Finley and
Dan Auerbach.
Dan Auerbach, yeah. I was going to say the guy from the Black Keys, and I couldn't remember which guy it was. But yeah, Dan Auerbach. And so I've followed them closely since then, and they're a pretty eclectic crew over there. And I like that not everything is in the same vein in terms of, okay, we're going to do music stories, but here's every genre you can imagine.
Right. Yeah. They're like I said, they're wheeling and dealing, man. They're leaving no stone unturned right now. And good for them, man. I'm really lucky and excited and happy to be doing work with them.
Yeah. So tell everybody about Chasing the Bird. Give everybody the story pitch.
Okay, so Chasing the Bird is about saxophonist Charlie Parker. It's about a time he spent in California, a really tumultuous time in his life. But in a way, it's so much more than that. It's like a kaleidoscopic look at this person. So one thing about Charlie Parker is that he's this figure who is, there's so many legends about him, and sometimes the legends don't really match up with reality with Charlie Parker. And I really wanted to explore that edge with this book. And so I constructed it as a series of 6 vignettes. Each vignette is narrated by a different person whose life intersected with Charlie Parker's life during this span of his life. So Dizzy Gillespie is a narrator. This artist named Zorthian is a narrator. A young photographer named William Claxton. These are all real people who really lived. A woman named Julie McDonald, who's a sculptor. John Coltrane is a narrator for one chapter, like a young John Coltrane. And then Ross Russell, who's like a record, the manager of his record label of Dial Records. And each chapter is narrated, and the point of view of the narrator is like inescapable, which means we might not be getting the totally true picture of Charlie Parker. We get a specific point of view for each of them. And for each chapter, I drew it and told the story with a completely different set of visual rules and style. So the Dizzy Gillespie chapter has this very dynamic style that you could maybe say feels improvisatory, with a lot of big shapes, a lot of like a lot of graphic design kind of. And you go to the next chapter, it's narrated by this artist from Europe. And so I kind of tried to copy the styles of famous European cartoonists like Mobius. And so I changed materials. I worked with a totally different set of materials to draw this chapter. And it has a totally different look, different color palette. The third chapter is narrated by like this college student. And so so in that one, I tried to make it look like almost like an Archie comic with like a set grid every page, and the colors are really flat colors. No unusual camera angles, just really straight ahead camera angles, and so on and so forth. And it gets really, it was just such a joy to put together. And I'm especially thankful that the Charlie Parker estate and Z2 were just totally encouraging for me to take these risks as a storyteller, because it would have been probably the first instinct is to just tell it like a documentary, real straightforward. This is what happened. This, then this, then this, then this. And as a result, we end up with something that's a lot more poetic, a bit more mysterious, and I would say more entertaining as a result.
So in terms of storytelling, in terms of getting these stories, it's not like you could go interview Coltrane, I mean, or Dizzy or any of those guys. So how did you find these stories? Was that part of what the Parker estate gave you, or was it reading interviews, listening to interviews?
The only restriction the Parker estate gave me was that it had to be about his time in California, Charlie Parker's time in California. And obviously content restrictions about like depictions of drug use, or no nudity, no depictions of drug use, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I had no. In fact, the solutions to those problems that were created by those restrictions, I think, turned out way cooler than it would have been if I had just been able to draw whatever.
Right.
So, and it was just a lot of research. I enlisted a friend of mine who's another a guy I know from my time getting my doctorate in music, who's a big time Charlie Parker like expert, saxophone player, amazing, to kind of like help me find stories about his time in California. And some of them were really well sourced, like the Zorthian party was pretty well sourced, pretty well documented. I think it's recorded. You can the music that you see on the page with the woman dancing is a transcription note for note of what Charlie Parker played in that moment in real life, which is kind of cool. A lot of the Dizzy chapter is sort of like me taking various accounts of this time with Dizzy from Ross Russell and from other biographers, and sort of like boiling it down to work as a chapter in a graphic novel, because I really wanted it to be about these two characters. And so the dramatic events that happen in this chapter maybe happen between Charlie Parker and a different person, but I would make that other person Dizzy Gillespie and make it about their relationship. And then, the Coltrane chapter was really based on one sentence in a book, which is kind of, I think some people have been surprised to hear that. That a young John Coltrane played at a jam session in the Los Angeles area with Lester Young and Charlie Parker. That was like an informal jam session at Lester Young's house. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's like three legends. Like that's like three incredible legends of this music, all meeting of the minds, sharing everything. And I was like, well, this has to be a chapter, because I knew that there had to be a chapter that was from the point of view of a saxophonist who really admired Parker. And so I thought it was going to be this one saxophonist for a while, but then when I heard that story, I was like, no, it has to be this. It has to be this. And there were some thoughts that I wanted to get out about, like the shadow that Parker casts on history in this music, in Black American music, and in just in music in general. And then, so, there were varying levels of like research that had to be done for all of them. But it was honestly, it came together really fast. I didn't have a lot of time to work on it. And it couldn't have possibly come together any better. I'm just so thrilled with how the book turned out.
Yeah, I like the fact that, and I studied jazz as a jazz musician and as a blues musician. I studied it extensively in school and extensively out of school. And I love the fact that you didn't include, some of the tabloidy parts of these stories that, so often when you see a movie about these guys, you see, you read a book about that era, about these legends. There's so much time spent on that, and not as much time spent on the other stuff. Because, and I think part of that has to do with it was documented. There's court records, there's legal, there's all kinds of mess. I love that it's not in the book, because it lets you not think about that for a minute, and just think about what it was that made you love Bird Parker, or what it, and in my mind, you're talking about these guys, and I'm hearing Lester Young in my head.
Right.
And thinking about why I love Lester Young, and why I love Monk, and why I love, so many of these great, these great musicians. And I'm not thinking about all the other stuff that I know. Right. Because, and it's really kind of a pure look at, something that every once in a while, it's good to look at that way, you know?
Yeah, yeah. You know, um, a lot of the times I think that's one part of the mythology around Parker that I really didn't lean into is this myth that he was this tortured, that he was somehow unique. Let me. I have to be careful about how I say this, right? Because
And I'm not.
no, no,
What
no.
I'm saying is that for me, it's great to remember the other parts.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, there's such a picture who's been painted of.
Yeah.
And I'll go with a different example of Billie Holiday. Such a picture has been painted of Billie Holiday that is only just a small portion of what made up the human.
Right, like you don't see the Charlie Parker being a practical joker. You don't see him like his temper in movies, or you don't see his friendship, or his or even like
the way he mentored guys like Mingus and some of these younger dudes who came on. So the way he brought up a generation.
Yeah, I mean, for better or worse, because some of that younger generation took the wrong lesson from his life,
Well,
yeah, they wanted to imitate him. They thought that the answer to be like him was one thing, and it wasn't that thing. It was more like you probably practice your instrument and then practice some more when you're done with that, and then maybe practice a little more, and sort of like the thing about Parker is that for him, it's for at least from my research, from hearing the words of people who knew him, and it really feels like he just had the most restless mind ever, and he was just so curious about everything all the time, had a restless mind. And when you take that in combination with what life was like for a Black person in America in the spotlight at the time, you have a target on your back all the time. You can't escape it. And that probably his restless mind combined with that, he was looking for ways to escape the kind of pain of existence all the time. And we all know he was a famously addictive, obsessive person, and for better or worse, he was addicted to playing his saxophone, he was addicted to practicing, he was addicted to music. He was also had problems with overeating all the time. He had problems with drinking too much, and obviously the famous one is that he had problems with heroin. And it's and of course our culture then and now isn't interested in helping people. It's just interested in punishing people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I mean, we can talk. I don't want to go too deep into that. Like I said, I want to respect the Parker estate's wishes to not depict that, not as much as anybody, because I think that's important. And as somebody who has seen that side of those addictions, I think it's important to recognize that that's just this much of who the person was.
Totally.
And that there was so much more that is worth noting and telling the story of.
Yeah.
So, to bring it back around, to bring it back to the lighter side of things, Eisner Award nominations for production design.
Yeah, man.
For book design. So what is that? Tell people out there what actual production design or book design is, layout design, that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it's just for as far as my understanding goes, it was for the deluxe edition. So the nomination for that was specifically for the oversized deluxe edition, which is really, I have a copy of it back here on my bookshelf. You can see it right there. Where is it? This right here?
It's the big red thing.
Yeah.
It looks red in the camera.
Yeah, and it's just it's a beautiful It's got a box set. It's got a box that it sits in. I think it's like the cover image, things like the flyleaf, like the pattern on the inside front cover, how it ties into the story as well, and the back cover design, and all of the design choices. Like there's a big end notes section in the book. Since it's like a non-fictional book, I had to put references and notes in the back of the book, and there's like just the way that the drawings are blown up and put behind the end notes, I think is appealing. And then stuff like the chapter headers, I think that all of these fall into the realm of book design. Even like paper choice, I didn't have anything to do with the choice of paper, but it's a beautiful book. It just feels like incredible. Like it's the kind of book that it's the kind of book that I think every comic artist wants to have something that they make come out and as this like bibliophile kind of ginormous, like oversized hardcover kind of book. And so it's just a total honor, total thrill, man. And to be recognized for book design along with Tyler Boss, who designed like the spine of the book and the back cover, is cool. Super cool, man. Super cool.
So that was going to be my next question. So how much of that did you do yourself, and how much of that did you do? Was there like input from Z2, or was there consulting that was done with that?
Yeah, I mean, most of the decisions were mine. Like I said, Tyler Boss did the back cover and the spine of the book, and I think I think he designed the slipcase too, which is like a big part of it, right? When you have it on your, it's in this slipcase, and it's a real minimal design, but which speaks to what he does. And then as far as everything else about it was just done by me. So all of the design of the front cover and all the stuff on the inside of the book was by me. Well, no, that's not true. There are a couple pages that Tyler threw in there, like divider pages, where he took like, there's a recurring theme of a bird, and then there's an elephant that shows up in the story at the very beginning. And he took those out of my art and put those on those pages. So I want to make sure that I get the crediting right in this discussion. Yeah, man, it's total thrilling honor. Can't even believe it.
So what is the Eisner process like? Do they just call you and be like, "Hey, you got nominated," or did you have to wait for the press release? Or
I got an email about it like a week before the press release, and they were like, "Don't tell anybody." And then I applied. I applied for it to be considered for nomination. Oh, did it get any other nominations beyond the one category? And they wrote back and were like very friendly, no. but it's cool. I kind of like, it's kind of the thing that it was a really crowded year for nonfiction comics, or for comics that were based on reality.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's a lot of that out there. I mean, in the list of nominees this year is particularly strong, and I think Chasing the Bird is a very strong contender. That's why I want to talk to you. But you look at other categories, and it's Stan Sakai's, and it's
mm-hmm.
It seems like every legend in the world got a nomination this year.
Yeah. It's all good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just like I said. I think a lot of people had last year to really put together their passion projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they did that, and I can tell that this is one for you that you're passionate about, and that this type of storytelling is certainly very, very close to you. Yeah. So, on a complete left turn. Sure, let's do it. I mentioned at the very beginning that I first came across you on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
How has social media affected what you do in particular? Because everybody uses it differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about it that way. I love. I think I might be a little more hands-on with like hyping my own stuff than maybe some other creators are. In particular, like the Charlie Parker book. I mean, there's not really an incentive for me to be trying to sell this book. I as far as the contract goes, like it was for the most part like work for hire, right?
mhm.
It's not a work that it's not a creator owned book is what I mean. And so in terms of like financial ramifications of me promoting it, it's not like there's a good reason for me, but I just can't help it, man. I just want people to read the stuff, right?
Right.
And I'm excited about the work and I want to share it with everybody. You know, I want people to read it. I want people to check this stuff out. I believe in the work that I do. And so yeah, like, you know, I mean, how has social media affected my work? I mean, I think it's just a tool for me to help promote. And the cool thing about TikTok is it's been a tool for me to help get some other ideas out, you know. For some reason, I've connected on TikTok much more strongly than on any other platform. Thanks to like a couple videos I did that got like really a lot of views that have nothing to do with comics, really. Videos about like perfectionism, fighting perfectionism, videos about like about fearing failure. I made like these little hand-drawn quasi-animated videos that are like a complete left turn from my comic book work in a lot of ways. You know, they really seem like they've connected with people, which is wild. You know, and then every now and then on TikTok I'll post some music. It's like a nice variety show kind of situation where I can just kind of like spend like an hour on a video and just do whatever the heck I feel like doing and whatever.
Right. I think the ones that go viral are the ones that connect with people on universal levels. You know, fear of failure, fighting perfectionism, that kind of stuff is, you know, it's universal. As everybody deals with that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so then I think the strategy is to like, you know, you cast a big net and try to connect with people on that universal stuff, and then whoever's stuck in your net, you try to sell them your book. You know? And I think it's worked out for this book. I mean, I think that a lot of people have been turned on to like this Charlie Parker book as a result of TikTok outreach, which is like not a sentence that I ever thought would come out of my mouth, you know.
The ones I love and the ones that I always find myself watching 4 or 5 times are my wife asked me to do a string arrangement of this hip hop song.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, oh, this is what WAP would sound like if it was performed by a string quartet. Huh.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
That's catchy.
Yeah, I just did another arrangement of the song "Something" by the Beatles, for her quartet. So I'm 3 arrangements in this year. I have that David Bowie one, and then "Good as Hell" by Lizzo.
Yes.
And then this Beatles tune. So it's been a fun. Those are 3 tunes that I really like. So it helps that when they're songs that I like.
Yeah, I heard a choral arrangement of "Good as Hell," and I'm going, this is not what was intended here, but this is a bop. It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, other than TikTok, what other kind of social media outreach and things do you do?
Sure. Yeah, like I mean, I'm on Twitter all the time. I try to participate in conversations on Twitter. I try to participate in community-wide movements. I say try because I end up missing a lot of them because the thing that the drag is that I basically since November I just finished it. I just have been like doing this book. It's like a 180-page book, and I can't share any of it. So like,
Right.
you had like a real lack of stuff to share. Like when I'm doing a lot of commission work, when I'm not working on a book and I'm doing commissions, then I can share everything that I do, and it's like you can really generate a lot of momentum that way. As it is, I'm just like it's easy for people to forget about you if you're not always sharing stuff. The other thing is like I'm a person who I love a stage. I love performing. I love being on stage and performing, and I love it's kind of an embarrassing thing to say, but I love being like the center of attention. I love doing my little like TED Talk kind of situation and talking about whatever's on my mind, like whales or spiders or fun facts about like the long distances of like empty space or whatever. And so the platforms that tend to lend themselves to that kind of like stuff work better for me. Yeah, and there's a little bit of that on Twitter, a lot of that on TikTok, and then like I'm trying to unpack Instagram. I'm trying to like be better about that platform because I know a lot of comic book people are on Instagram and do really well on Instagram, and I'm not one of them. And I want to.
I had to hire somebody to do my Instagram.
Yeah, I had to, and so I had to kind of like stop and be like, all right, I need to dedicate a little more thought because I was doing like one post every 2 weeks, and that's not a good way to grow. It's just a good way to like just have it. And so like if the whole point is trying to make this thing grow, try to post more, be a little more active, comment on other people's stuff a little more, be part of a community. Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I think that it's something I've struggled with a little bit is feeling like I'm part of like a community. I don't necessarily always feel like I'm part of like the comics community at large. I think there's a few other creators who like are fans of my work, and I really appreciate that. But I feel a little bit like I don't know. It's just hard to feel like it, but at the same time, it's like I just have to keep making the work that I'm making, and and that's it really. Just make the work, keep my head down, make the work.
You hear a lot of that from musicians, especially and who have had crossover success into other fields, right? So Brian Johnson, the Beach Boys, the biggest band in the world, and he's like, I don't feel like I fit in with the music community because I want to be over here doing operatic and orchestral stuff, but
right.
They want me to write saccharine pop songs, and it's I think a lot of creatives feel that way. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's a silly thing to even say.
No, it's totally relatable. I mean, I'm someone who I make funny little television shows for a living and interview people I like to talk to, but in the back of my mind, I still want to be John Popper, which is a really weird thing to want to be. But I want to be John Popper and Meatloaf. Like
that's a wicked combination.
Right, but in the back of my mind, that's what I've always wanted to be. Like growing up, if I couldn't be in the Eagles, I wanted to be, those great big dudes who stand in front of crowds just and had them transfixed.
Sure, man.
With the theatrics of being on stage. So I totally can relate to that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a funny thing, right? Because I think that a lot of artists and creative people have that thing that's called imposter syndrome, and it's taken me because like for a while I thought maybe I have that too, but then I realized that it's like, no, it's a funny like almost like narcissistic flip of imposter syndrome, right? That I've always had, like as long as I can remember. And it's that if other people don't like my work, they're the imposter. It's like,
Right. Right.
and I look back
Right.
at some of the stuff that I like championed of my own work from like say 2003, and I'm like, it's total garbage, right? And I'm like, but I believed in it so much at that time. I was like, this is greatness, and everyone who doesn't believe it is completely insane, right? And of course, like that's a silly way of thinking. And so I kind of have to catch myself and just be like, look, not everyone's gonna like your stuff. Like making a graphic novel about a jazz musician is like a niche inside of a niche, you know, and it's okay. It's okay. Like you can believe in it, and if nobody else does, you still make something that you believe in that's meaningful, that's powerful, you know. And so it's just that's the struggle inside of me. It's not like, am I not good enough? Am I not good enough? It's more like why doesn't everybody else?
Right.
And again, like
Let everybody see how great I am.
I hope it's coming across that like it's a part of me that I'm like not really super hyped on. I'm not like bragging
Right.
about it. I'm not like proud of it. It's like it's like a funny, like it's a quirk that's like led to me. It's a quirk that's like led to me feeling zero pressure to be perfectionist, led to me being prolific and work fast and make stuff that I like. So it hasn't been a totally a bad thing, you know, the even though it's kind of cringy.
So we only have a couple of minutes left here, and I ask everybody a couple of questions they can't possibly have been prepared for.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, but before I get to that,
Okay.
You already did your desert island records, like the 2 records you take with you on a desert island.
Those are if I had to pick one artist, yeah, that would
Right.
be
Yeah.
that would be my stuff. Yeah.
Is there a new record or new music? Is there something that's really tripping your trigger that's new out there?
I mean, it's not that new. No. I mean, I just like I'm like it's like the most like the least surprising. It's not like I'm gonna unearth a hidden gem for anybody, but I just really love Radiohead. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're just an incredible band. So
yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. I can totally get behind that. Okay, so questions you can't have possibly been prepared for. Do you have a favorite Pokemon?
I've never even considered. I've never played Pokemon. I've never looked at the cards. Are there cards? Is it a card game?
There are cards, yes, but it's also like the mobile game where you walk around like this.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit old for that, man. I'm a little. I peaked a little before I aged out of that fad before it was even a thing.
So then it's if you had the ultimate nerd garage.
Okay.
You'd have one car and one spaceship from all of pop culture. What would you put in your nerd garage?
1989 Batmobile and the Millennium Falcon. Again, like no, these are obvious answers, but this is this is it. This is what I would choose. Hey. And not because I want to drive that Batmobile. It seems like it would really suck to park.
Right.
But it's just like it in that moment when I was 8 years old and I went to see that Batman movie in 1989. Like, I'm trying to think. I think that's the most I've ever enjoyed a movie in my entire life was 1989 Batman. And so, you know, like a clunky design. I love like a weathered, lived in thing. So I'll choose that. That's pretty easy. Yeah.
Then last question. If you could have dinner with one historical figure, one artist, and one musician,
oh my gosh,
living or dead, who would they be?
dinner.
Hmm.
Um, dinner. I mean, I want to be cheeky and say like Anthony Bourdain so that he can cook me something that's amazing.
Hey,
Right?
that's a good answer. That's an answer.
But then I'm like, but what if? I would want to like pick the person who had the idea to build the Great Pyramid,
Okay.
and then have a translator so that we could talk about like how did this happen, or whatever, however that. I'm taking this
We'll
way
give
too
you Anthony
serious.
Bourdain as an artist, and we'll give you the Great Pyramid guy as a historical figure.
I
Musician.
I guess.
Well, Anthony Bourdain did Jiro Dreams of Sushi, so it counts.
Yeah, but he really wouldn't be my artist choice. But either way, that's fine.
Either way, you get him to cook you dinner.
Musician. I just admire so many different musicians, but I don't know if any of them are people that I would really want to have dinner with. I mean, I know that I'm taking this way too seriously. I should just be like Beethoven, or like Fiona Apple, or like Tom York, or Miles Davis. But like, do they want to have dinner with me? Probably not.
Okay.
So like, like.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I don't know. I'm overthinking this. I think I apologize.
Well, no, my answer to this question has been the same for about a decade.
Okay.
The historical figure for me is John Adams.
Okay.
Because he was neither Jefferson nor Washington, and he kind of got stuck between them.
Okay.
Then artist, I would love to have gotten the chance to have dinner with Pablo Picasso.
Okay.
Because I think that dude was insane. And then musician, it's Lou Reed. Because I think Lou Reed probably has stories that would just make you go, there's no way that's true. And they were absolutely true of him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think those are three all right choices, I can't.
Yeah. So, all right. To wrap things up, where can people follow you, and where, more importantly than that, which that's very important, where can they support your work?
Well, I'm on social. My website is davechisholmmusic.com. So it's a music website, but it has all my comic stuff on it too. My Twitter handle is my last name, then my first name, Chisholm Dave. My TikTok is Dave Chisholm Comics. My Instagram is the Dave Chisholm. There's a theme here, which is my name. And as far as how to support me, it's a funny thing to support. How do you support an artist in 2021? Buy their work, yeah. But maybe more importantly is like sharing their work and championing their work. I think that's almost more valuable than buying it, or as valuable as buying it. So like if you come across the work from any artist that you like it and share it. Don't just like be like, that's cool, but like it and share it with people and say, this is this, and this is badass. This is why I like it. It's always a thrill for us on our end when people do that. And it's really helpful. We all want to spread the word, and we all want to get more people reading our books or watching our movies or listening to our music and stuff like that. And in this day and age, you gotta share. You gotta help.
Yeah, when you do commissions, is that done through your website?
Usually I just will do like a cattle call on Twitter, and I'll just get like a humongous list, and then I'll just slowly plug away through the list, and then I'll put a cap on it at some point. I don't know when I'm going to do that again. I have a couple of projects that are kind of like chilling on the back burner right now that I'm hoping to start really soon. But they might just be like pitches to publishers and not like, I don't think any of them are like contract in hand quite yet. So if assembling these goes well, then I probably won't be doing commissions for the time being. If for some reason things are a little bit, touch and go, then I'll probably start taking on commissions again and try to get those creative wheels turning in that way.
Awesome. Dave, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I always love talking to people who love music like I love music.
Hell yeah.
I don't get to do it as often as I'd like to. So thank you for that. Everybody head out to a comic shop or head over to davechisholmmusic.com. Link will be in the comments on this video for you to head over there, and you can follow Dave from everywhere there and support him that way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.